I tried to follow the statements and negotiations that Indigenous peoples were putting forward regarding just transition. But I felt that there wasn't that nuance there of understanding Indigenous people as working people. Indigenous people participate greatly in the wage economy and also in our traditional livelihoods on the land. And I feel like there isn't enough nuance put forward by Indigenous peoples. So I started following the women and gender constituency because they seem to have a better understanding of the complex contributions that Indigenous people have to our economies. Um, Especially because I come from Northern Alberta, which is the oil sands region where many of our men participate in energy extraction, and Indigenous peoples are very successful in implementing renewable energy in their communities, and we still have our traditional practices on the land. So I really feel like if we're spending all of our time just to include Indigenous peoples, just the word
Mm-hmm.
Indigenous peoples' rights and the word gender in these negotiations, we can't even have those nuanced conversations of how
Mm-hmm.
complex Indigenous peoples participate within our economies. And so um, I spent most of my time actually participating in actions. So
Mm-hmm.
I went to the People's March, and it was beautiful. It felt like the Indigenous COP. Indigenous people from North America and Brazil had really great solidarity with each other. We built very strong relations. Um, and so on the ground, it felt like the Indigenous Peoples COP because we were working together as a collective, Indigenous people from all seven sociocultural regions. There was a real camaraderie and care that came out at this COP, especially because there were Indigenous peoples who didn't have enough funding, didn't have proper accommodations. Even where I was staying, I stayed with Indigenous Climate Action, and we offered some of our rooms to some of the Indigenous people that had come and had not been given proper accommodations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so just that care on the ground was really amazing. Um, and I'm always amazed when I attend COP at all the brilliant Indigenous folks I get to meet, who also have many of the Indigenous folks. Like, we invite a lot of and bring a lot of traditional knowledge keepers who have an understanding of our relationship to the land, our traditional livelihoods, and our languages, and how that our livelihoods maintain biodiversity, and how we're stewards of the land wherever we are. But also, those same people come to COP and they have law degrees, they're scientists, they're policy experts, they're there as Indigenous leaders representing their Indigenous nations. And so it's really a beautiful experience as an Indigenous
Mm-hmm.
person to be surrounded just by Indigenous brilliance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so upsetting how the powers that be, i.e., our colonial nation states, don't recognize that brilliance. Yet we're cited, especially in Canada, all of our climate change policies cite Indigenous knowledges, Indigenous ecological knowledge, Indigenous sciences. Like, we're cited in every Canadian climate policy
Mm-hmm.
document um, as you know leading in climate solutions. However,
Mm-hmm.
we're never like fully invited to the
Mm-hmm.
table, and our Indigenous climate solutions are never fully implemented. And so, yeah, it felt like an Indigenous COP on the ground in Indigenous Peoples
Yeah.
Caucus, and also in some of the actions that I participated in. But in the negotiation rooms, it did not feel like that.